Once toxicity, and that includes sugar, once toxicity and sugar are eliminated and you've stabilized your blood sugar, you're eating more protein, you're eating more building foods, less inflammatory foods, which are processed foods, relaxing, lightening up, breathing, activating your parasympathetic nervous system, you're going to feel better. You're going to get stronger. Your sleep will improve. You'll be more resistant to colds. You're going to be more vibrant. And these are the conditions that will allow your taste buds to work again. Your entire body is breaking down, and that's what we need to be addressing. I'm talking to this lady. Focus globally on the body as a whole. Use nutrition, dietary and digestive strategies. Stabilize your blood sugar. Eat coconut oil. Less refined carbohydrates. Deep breathe. Use psychological, mental, emotional strategies. These are all the things we can do ourselves. We don't need any doctors for this. We're pharmacists. You don't need me for this. I'm irrelevant. The medical model's irrelevant. These are all things we can do ourselves. Finally, she gets it. So, okay, she tells me, I think I understand. My body's breaking down. My taste buds are just a sign of the general bodily distress that's occurring, right? Hallelujah. You got it. And she says, great, I got one more question. What can I take for my carpal tunnel syndrome? I'm not kidding you. This is exactly what she said to me. And I just had to laugh because it's so difficult for us to understand this concept, because the medical this for that model of health that is perpetuated by doctors and alternative practitioners and nutritionists and chiropractors, it gives us this idea that we can take this formula or this supplement or this drug or have this procedure done and we'll be healthy again. Doctors are trained in disease. They're trained in how to alleviate disease, and that's it. If they have to do it by fudging or by creating numbers synthetically and by making up tests, so be it. They may not be able to reverse heart disease, but they can lower your cholesterol. They may not be able to make your thyroid work better, but they can lower your TSH. And it's not their fault. We've abdicated our responsibility. We've given it away. We've given away our power to the medical model, and the medical model says, okay, we'll take responsibility. We'll take it for you. Give us your power, and we'll take out your gallbladder, and your gallbladder won't hurt anymore. But we have no one to blame but ourselves. It's not the doctor's fault. Doctors are nice people. They mean well for the most part. And you know what? It's not even necessarily our fault, really, because we live in a society and a culture where we're imprinted this way. But once we understand what's happening here, we can start to take our power back on all levels. Spiritual levels, mental levels, emotional levels, and yes, physical levels. And it starts with building our body back up. You got a skin problem, you got an immune problem, you got a digestive problem, you got an inflammatory condition, correct digestive issues. Do a food diary. Write down your foods. In fact, stop eating. Fast for a couple of days. Somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago if I could talk about how to do a fast. Well, how do you do a fast? You fast by not eating. How do you not eat? You not eat. You stop eating for a day. If you want to do some nutrients while you're fasting, that's not the end of the world, but it's not the end of the world to miss a day of nutrients either. If you absolutely positively have to have some kind of nutrition, do some lemon juice. Take a stalk of celery, put it in a Vitamix, put in a bunch of water, have some celery water. Celery water spun around, celery ground up in a blender, in a Vitamix, spun around at high speed, creates an electrical charge. You'll be drinking electrical energy, and you'll get your nitrates and your phytonutrients from the celery as well. That's how easy health can be, you guys. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're coming back with Dr. James Ehrlich. 844-236-6010 is our number. All right, we're back on the bright side. I am Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for joining us. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific, 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on our archive page at brightsideben.com. You can also purchase longevity products off of brightsideben.com, and now you can purchase my Bergamax product off brightsidehealthproducts.com, brightsidehealthproducts.com. And I am pleased to welcome our guest to the program, Dr. James Ehrlich. We talked to Dr. Ehrlich a couple of weeks back, and your response was very positive, and got a bunch of letters here wanting me to ask Dr. Ehrlich some questions, so we'll do that here in just a moment. Greetings, Dr. Ehrlich. Good morning, buddy.
Morning, Ben.
How you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Welcome back to town. I know you're a world traveler these days.
Lately I have been, yes.
What is your specific background? I know you and I have talked a lot about nutrition, and we talk about cardiology. What is your specific specialty?
Well, I originally started my medical career as an anesthesiologist, and then very early on in the mid-'90s, I got interested in early detection of heart disease. And so I developed centers in various cities that had tests and technologies in the early detection of coronary artery disease, and then expanded that to cancer. And so, these centers were in Denver and in Washington, D.C. and other places. And then later on, I became chief medical officer of the largest advanced cholesterol laboratory in the country. And then since then, I've been very much involved with the field of molecular diagnostics, which in helping to diagnose various forms of heart disease. So it's, but presently I'm a clinical associate professor in a endocrine at the University of Colorado for endocrinology.
And how did bergamot get on your radar?
Well, what happened was there's a very good preventive cardiologist, actually he's a radio host in Australia, who I've known for many years because we've been involved with the same technologies in the early detection of heart disease. And he alerted me to bergamot. He has now 4,000 patients on it. But he told me about the research. He sent me the research. I was very impressed. And from that, I developed an association with the group of scientists in southern Italy who had done most of the seminal research. And since then, I've been to Italy many times and been involved with many of the studies. So it's really been a very nice adventure, and I've been surprised really how a fruit grown in one region of the world, if it's extracted and the right polyphenols and amino acids are extracted from this fruit, how you can develop a product that can have such wide-ranging benefits.
Now, I was talking to you yesterday, and we were just having a little conversation about the bergamot, and I asked you, what's the one thing that you absolutely love about Bergamax, about the bergamot fruit or the product Bergamax? And I thought your answer was very interesting. Why don't you tell our audience what you told me?
I'm going to give two answers. I'm going to give the answer I gave you and the answer I thought about that actually turns me on a little bit more.
Okay.
So as a scientist, I gave you the answer as a scientist physician, which is how can one product, develop so many interesting properties in lowering blood sugar and lowering inflammation and cholesterol and improving vessel health. And, you and I talked about how polyphenols might work in central processes that can affect so many systems. That's very, very interesting as a scientist. But thinking about it as a consumer or somebody who is a physician dealing with problems, there are so many problems that are very difficult to treat and are so common in society. For example, fatty liver disease affecting 20% of Americans. There's no drug for that. Metabolic syndrome affecting 70 million Americans. And there's no single drug for metabolic syndrome.
What is let me digress just a quick second, Doc. Tell our listeners what metabolic syndrome is.
Well, metabolic syndrome is a pre-diabetic state that is characterized by an expanding waistline, which many of us have, by elevated blood sugar and cholesterol, and it's related to lifestyle, eating the wrong foods, especially carbohydrate-rich foods, and sedentary lifestyle, not getting enough exercise. And what happens is you develop what's called insulin resistance. Your own insulin doesn't work very well, and I know you've talked about this many times on your show. And through that mechanism, it's a pathway towards diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and many other problems. So it's a very prevalent condition, and most people can just recognize the person walking through the door of an office with a big belly to suspect that this may be going on.
Now, continue. I didn't mean to make you digress there. Go ahead. Now, how does that relate to Bergamax and Bergamot and what you like about it?
So what's interesting is that we can address as clinicians the individual aspects of the metabolic syndrome. For high cholesterol, we can give a patient a medication. For high blood pressure, which is a feature, we can treat that with blood pressure pills. For high blood sugar, we can treat it individually. For an expanding waistline, we can't do much other than give the person very good advice on lifestyle. And yet here's one product that addresses all of the components, all 5 components of the metabolic syndrome and the underlying condition of insulin resistance. And this has been very well studied. I mean, Bergamet was named for the metabolic syndrome, Bergamet. So the fruit is called the bergamot fruit, but it's been called Bergamet mainly because it uniquely addresses this very, very important syndrome. It really is considered the epidemic of the 21st century, and it's the pathway by which most Americans are now getting heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. They go through a phase of metabolic syndrome.
And roughly what kind of dosage do you need, and how much time does it take for people to notice effects, weight loss, changes in blood pressure and blood sugar, et cetera?
We like to have people take it for 3 months because some of the features, like triglycerides, will go down very quickly, but some of the features like visceral abdominal fat, waistline size, takes a while. The dose that we use is 1,300 milligrams a day. That's 650 milligram tablets twice a day.
Doc, we got to take a break. I want you to continue and come back, and then I also want to talk about male sexual performance. There's some interesting stuff that you were telling me yesterday about ED and Bergamot. We're talking to Dr. James Ehrlich about Bergamax. If you're interested in purchasing the product, head over to BrightSideHealthProducts.com. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back after this. Okay, we are back on The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben talking to Dr. Jim Ehrlich about Bergamax. You can find out all about it at BrightSideHealthProducts.com. All right, Doc, before we went to break, you were talking about dosages and how soon people can expect to see some benefit. First thing that they'll notice is a reduction in blood fats. Is that correct?
Yes, they will. And some people get a slight reduction in blood pressure early on. Others, it takes a little while. The triglycerides go down first, and then we see if we do advanced cholesterol testing and look at size and density of particles, those improve very quickly too. The actual cholesterol concentration, which is less important than the particle number, gradually improves, and the good cholesterol goes up. So we see those sequences, and we see blood sugar stabilize and go down in many people. So those are the improvements. Now, technically, the improvements in vessel health occur really within days. So these are things that you won't notice, except for the very interesting phenomenon that many men have noticed improvement in sexual function, where they say, boy, this is, I've noticed an improvement here. And we all knew this would make sense because obviously the blood flow to that organ is governed by how much dilatation of arteries, which is improved throughout the body. So there's no reason why the penile blood vessels would be spared. And so this has been formally studied, and we've been able to look at this area. Now, as I mentioned last time, the Bergamax improves endothelial function, the lining of all the vessels in the body. This is a lining that comprises a surface area of 6 tennis courts in the average male, and governs how well these vessels respond to stress and how well do they dilate. And you want to have healthy linings of the vessels. And The Bergamax very much ensures that.